All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about best practices for auto registration. So with us today we have Seth Koderba. He's a principal engineer with our Reality Solutions team. I'm Eric Ritchie from the customer engagement team here at Autodesk. And so, as always, during the session, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, you have the little widget here at the side of your screen to ask in GoToMeeting. As you see here, we are recording this session, so we'll be posting this recording, within the next couple of days to our YouTube site. Same site you can find all of our other previous recordings and all of that. We'll share those links with you at the end of the session. And, as always, I encourage you guys to reach out to us, recap.community@autodesk.com. If you want to share feedback about the session or ideas for sessions, if you have something, that you've been doing with Recap that you'd like to present and show everybody, feel free to reach out and let us know. With that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Seth, and we can get started. Hey, Seth.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
All right, sounds good. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the new auto registration features that are coming out in our new Recap 2.0 product, which should be out very soon. Before I jump into that stuff, I do want to give a couple of quick slides about the overview of some of the changes that you're going to be seeing in the new version of Recap. First of all, I want to mention the portfolio packaging that has changed. Previously, Recap was a single download, and you could enable some pro features through subscription or licensing. That was confusing for a lot of customers that the Recap and Recap Pro are really the same application. So what we've done is we tried to eliminate some of that confusion, and we now have a separate free version of Recap. This is going to be coming in suites, and you can also download it online. And that will have all of the basic data preparation tools that you're familiar with in Recap. Separate from that, we're going to have a new product that's called Recap 360, and this one will have two subscription tiers. So the base tier, this one is just Recap 360. Is going to have some of the new advanced measurement and tagging features, and I'll briefly mention a couple of those. And then the ultimate tier, which adds the advanced registration capabilities, which I'm going to be talking about today. Both of these include access to the photo service and various amounts of online storage, and there will be a 30-day trial for the 360 Ultimate. Okay, so let's go talk briefly about some of the new stuff that you're going to see in Recap. There's going to be some new improved measurement tools, so we'll now have XYZ components for measurements, some great new ortho snapping tools allow you to get true clearance measurements. The limit box has been upgraded and improved significantly. Annotations have also been improved, and you're going to see some new view state capabilities and features. In particular, you can now have view states for real views in addition to the 3D views that were there before. You're going to be able to change the visibility on annotations within those view states, and then you're going to be able to group view states and name those groups for better organization. So that's in the base free version of Recap, and of course in all the other versions of Recap as well. For Recap 360, the base subscription tier, there's some additional features there for doing snapping to cylinders, so to the center line or to the outer edge of cylinders to give good clearance measurements on pipes and other cylindrical objects. We have some new markup tools in RealView for doing fence or rectangular style selections, and you can change colors and styles of those. So that's something that you'll want to take a look at and play around with. The annotations are significantly improved. As I mentioned, we're going to be able to add images, text, hyperlinks into any kind of measurement or markup notes that you create. And the search is a nice new feature, so if you've got lots of annotations or markups, we'll be able to search through those different annotations and markups. And then, of course, you can publish and sync to the web your real views as well as your markups and annotations and measurements. If anybody is interested in seeing some of these features in action, Ryan Friends gave a webinar 2 weeks ago where he goes into more detail about these features as well as the base recap features. But what I'm going to be talking about today specifically about the Ultimate, 360 Ultimate features, in particular the automatic registration. This is we're considering it still a beta, but we do want to get it out into the field and let people play with it and give us feedback on that. But basically this is a batch registration mode that tries to do a lot of the simple registration for the user up front and let the user be involved in the more challenging pieces of registration that we may not be able to automate. And so I'll talk a lot about that today. I'm also going to mention the auto suggest, which is more for manual registration, but it's kind of a modification or variation of the automatic registration in the kind of two-pane manual registration mode, and I'll show that. And then there's also some UX improvements, for example, in the three-click registration some of you may be familiar with. We now have the capability of using targets for correspondences there, so any combination of targets and points. So you may have one target and two manual clicks, or all targets. In any combination of three, either targets or manual clicks, will work for the registration now. And then, most importantly, we've got some good performance improvements in resource utilizations to make registration faster and more efficient on your CPU. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into auto registration then. So the first thing that you're going to notice in the new 2.0 version of Recap is that when you import your scans and you come down here on the lower right, the blue registration rectangle, when you hover over that, you're going to see a new display popping up. And this is notifying you that there is some new features in Recap. The default behavior of this blue button now is going to be to trigger the automatic registration process. If you've already registered your data in another product, you can still skip registration as before. And if you're not interested in using the automatic registration, you can use the manual registration button here to enter the traditional manual workflow. And this manual workflow also will be important for those of you that may run auto registration or do some initial registration and then save and close the application. If you want to get back into that registration that you've already started, you will need to click the manual registration to get back into that. Otherwise, clicking on this blue scan will redo the blue button will redo the auto registration for you, and you'll be notified of that, and I'll show you that in a moment. But when you do click on register scans, what you're going to see is a new dialog that pops up like this. Progress bar. It's going to show you some status, some percentage, give you an elapsed time, and estimate how much time is left. But basically what's happening at this stage is that the auto registration tool is going through each of these scans, and it's looking at some matches to some of the corresponding scans around it. And we're making the assumption here that scanning has been done in a sequential manner. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But basically, if you're scanning through a building in a sequential manner, we're making the assumption that one scan might have a lot of similarity to the scans that came before and after that. So we're looking at a couple of scans before and after each scan and we're stepping through all of the scans that were imported, and we're kind of building up a network of scans. And at the end, we're going to take that network and we're going to bundle adjust that, and then we're going to show you some status about what we did. One of the things that you'll notice is that if there is a point in your registration where a scan was out of order, or there was not, we were not able to find a match between one scan and the next one, what we'll do is we're going to start a new group with that scan and start adding the scans after that to that group. So in best case scenario, you'll just end up with one group and all your registration will be completely done for you. But if that doesn't happen, you may end up with two or more groups that you'll then want to stitch together manually once this process is complete. And what you'll see in terms of completion, it'll tell you how many scans were imported, and then some status on how many groups were created, and if there were any scans that it wasn't able to match, it'll show that as well. So in this case here, we had 10 scans that were imported. We created two groups, and one scan wasn't able to find a match. So you know, you probably had one group that had maybe 5 scans and another group that had 4 scans. So 9 of the 10 scans were grouped, and one was remaining. Okay, so and I'll demo this in a bit, but I want to talk about some tips and tricks to get the best results out of this automatic registration. One of the things I want to mention is the import process, and this is going to be important because of the fact that I mentioned that we're making an assumption of the scans are in a sequential manner. One thing that you might notice is that if you have scans that are numbered like this, and you take all of them and drag them into the application for import, we're ordering them on alphanumeric ordering. And here, scan 10 is alphanumerically following scan 1. And again, scan 11, 12, 13 are after that, but scan 2 doesn't come here until after scan 13. And of course, if we're trying to look for sequential patterns here, obviously the gap between 1 and 10 is going to be large, and between 13 and 2 is going to be large. And so the automatic registration is not going to give you as good of results in this case as if you had numbered your scans like this, using zeros to pad that out, and now the alphanumeric ordering is correct for these scans. And a lot of scanners will do this automatically for you. I know some of them do not. I think the Faro is definitely one that does do that proper ordering for you with the zero padding. If your scans are not structured in this way in terms of their naming, there is some other tricks that you can do to do this other than manually changing the names yourself. One of the things that you can do is you can take your first 9 or 10 scans and drag them in first, and that will put them all in a row in order. And then if you take the next set of scans and bring those in after that, that will preserve that ordering. And this is a nice trick to remember, not only for this reason that I'm describing here, but also for the case where you're scanning in an environment where you can't, for whatever reason, scan perfectly sequentially. You may have interruptions, and you may have to move to another part of the building and come back. Who knows what it may be, but if you have field notes where you know that scans 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe 9, 10, and 11 were all kind of in a sequential pattern, you can take that set of scans and import those ones first, and then grab scans 4 through 8 and bring those in next, and that will preserve that ordering for purposes of the automatic registration, and that way you can get the most out of this process. Okay, so once you've done that and you've ran through the automatic registration, you've got your results. What do we want to look at? Well, one of the things you want to do is inspect those results. here's an example. So we're looking at a group. You want to look at the top-down view of that group, obviously, to make sure that everything looks right. If you do have any kind of 2D field notes that kind of shows the location of scans, it would be good to reference that to make sure that everything looks right. Down here, when you hover over this little clipboard icon, it's going to show you some statistics, and if you're familiar with Recap, you'll know these statistics, but you want to take a look at these and make sure that everything looks as expected here. The other thing that has always been in the product, but a lot of people may not realize it was there, there's this button down here. It's called 3D Preview, and if there's any issues that you might be concerned about that aren't obvious from the top-down view, you can always go into that 3D view, and you can load any set of scans here, all of them or a few from that group to inspect and analyze from a 3D perspective to make sure everything looks correct there. And this process, you're going to want to do this for each group that was created to make sure everything looks right, and especially until you kind of get more comfortable with the automatic registration and trust what it's doing. But it's always a good idea to take a look at that. Okay, so that's some of the basics of auto registration and how it will work and how you can take advantage of that. And again, I'll show a demo here shortly of that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was the automatic suggestion. So this here is a tool that you're going to notice when you get into the two-panel or two-pane registration view. Down here in the bottom, there's going to be a new widget that you're going to see at all times during registration. And what this is doing is it's searching for a match between any pair of scans. So here on the left, I have the scan at the top selected, and the first scan in group 1, and also the first scan in group 2 selected. And what we're doing is we're looking at these two scans and looking for a match between those two scans. And if a match is found, it's going to pop up and the widget's going to change and look something like this. And a new little window is going to pop up that shows a preview of how those groups, or in the case of an individual scan, are coming in together. This little widget, you'll be able to hover over that and zoom into that to take a closer look at how those scans fit together. But this is a nice new tool that basically replaces the need for the 3-click manual registration in many cases. You won't always be able to find a match, but you, in many cases, will. And one thing to remember is that if you have two groups, you want to make sure that you're selecting the scan from group 1 and group 2 that will be closest together to get the best match. Performance, we've noticed that will vary by data sets. Some data sets have more complexity to them, and the suggestion engine may be a little bit slower, and in those cases it may be more efficient to actually use the 3-click mode. But in the majority of cases, the suggestion engine is a nice, more efficient alternative to doing the 3-click approach, where you have to kind of search around and look for correspondences on your own. And I think that's all I wanted to mention about that. And so let's go ahead and jump into a demonstration of this. So here I have 10 scans, and when I hover over this screen, this button here, you're going to notice the pop-up that I described before. I've already done some registration with these scans, so it's warning me that you've already have some work that was done. Do you want to throw that away and start a new automatic registration? I'm going to show you if I cancel that. If we do jump into the manual registration, you'll see here that this is some groups that were already created. So this would be how you would resume registration if you had paused in the middle of that. But then if I go back to this import page here, I can click this again, and I'll go ahead and accept this time. And now it's going to start this registration process. As I said, it's going to go through each scan. It's going to be comparing it to some of the neighboring scans in the sequence, and it's going to be looking for matches similar to the auto-suggestion that I mentioned before. There's some status here. It's going to show you how many scans it's matched and how many groups have been created, and also kind of estimate about how much time is left here. Once this is complete, then we can go in and do the stitching of any groups or individual scans that were left after this process. And just about complete here. The last percentage of this tends to be a little bit faster with smaller groups for doing the bundle adjustment. And there's our result. As I said, you can see that we have 2 groups that were created. This group has 5, this group has 4, and then there was 1 individual scan that wasn't matched. So you want to go ahead and take a look at this group. Again, pop up the statistics here, make sure everything looks right there. There's no surprises there. If you want to go into 3D mode, you can do that from here, and that's going to pop up the 3D preview of that alignment, so you can take a look at that. Click OK on that. You're also going to want to do that for the other group. In this case, you can't select group 2 until it's deselected on this side, so if you go and load your unregistered scans, you can move to group 2. Again, inspect this one. In this case here, you'll notice that the overlap was a little bit lower on scan 10. Scan 10 is the one that's out here, and there was a pretty good distance between scan 9 and 10, which corresponds to that lower overlap there. But the results do look good, and again, if you had any concerns, you can check that out in 3D preview. Scan 9 here, this one was actually taken right in a doorway, and primarily in a hallway here, so you can see that the balance number is a little bit lower there for that scan. But again, this did come together nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to group 1 here and group 2 here, and I'm going to show the suggestion engine. So I'm going to go ahead and select scan 6 on this side, which will select this scan here, and I've selected scan 7 from this group here. These 2 groups fit together something. If you can see my cursor here, this kind of rectangle area fits in something over here. You'll notice that scan 6 is a good distance from scan 7, and as we sequentially went through that automatic registration, it wasn't able to find a match between scan 6 and 7. And here again, the suggestion engine was not able to find that as well. But I happen to know that scan 2 is closest to scan 7, and that's pretty obvious from if you're familiar with the environment that you scan, you kind of know where the matches or the closest scans are, especially if you've taken any field notes as well. So you want to find that closest scan in the left and find the closest scan in the right, and here we found a match. And now if you zoom into that, you can take a look and see how those scans are going to come in together as a preview of that. And if everything looks good there, we can go ahead and click on Merge Scans. And now that will bring this entire group of 4 scans into this existing group of 5. And now we'll have 9 scans that were registered without any user clicks. The only thing that I had to do was tell it that scans 2 and 7 were closest together. And there you have 9 scans. Same thing here for this scan. Scan 11 I know is closest to scan 10, and the auto registration would have found a connection between these 2, But in this case, the overlap is significantly lower than for other scans. And for that reason, we're trying to be conservative about the automatic registration in order to, here, I'll take a preview of how those scans fit together. We're trying to be conservative about the automatic registration to avoid as many false positives as possible. So in cases where the overlap or the bounds are lower than expected, we're going to head and err on the side of caution and not pull those scans together. Again, here the auto suggestion works very well, and because there's a human in the loop, we're more confident about letting that match show up there and let the user decide whether that's a good match or not. And that's one thing to remember about the new engine in general, is that the auto registration is going to be conservative, especially about overlap. And in some environments, especially kind of large open indoor environments or even outdoor environments, as we're scanning, we tend to take bigger strides or bigger steps between scans, and that can impact the overlap significantly, which may not give the type of results that would be expected from the auto registration because of those overlaps. We're going to be conservative about that and avoid bringing in matches with low overlap. So that is the case for the engine as it is today. We'll be looking at that in the future to make that more robust. But currently, you're going to get the best results for kind of tighter scanning in indoor environments. What about other? So I'm going to jump out of this demonstration. I'll go back to the slides. What about other challenges that you might face with auto registration? Well, you shouldn't be surprised if I tell you that automation isn't perfect. We've done a lot of testing and we're very confident in it, but there are still going to be cases where the auto registration is going to find challenges. One of those challenges is in places where you're scanning a lot of rooms that are basically identical. And this can happen. In this case, this was like an office space with a lot of offices that were all identical right in a row. Maybe, for example, a hospital with a lot of rooms that are all right in a row. Because we're looking at this in a sequential manner, one office that gets scanned right after another is going to be confusing for it. And you can see here what happened was that this particular scan that is highlighted should be in the room next door, but it found very good overlap, very good balance, and very good quality from this scan here because it's basically an identical room. So that's something to keep in mind if you're scanning environments that may have these kind of cookie cutter patterns to them. You may want to watch the auto registration very carefully or just avoid it in general. One other place where you might see some issues is large open environments like this where there's not a lot of structure to them. So in this environment you can see just a long series of I-beams where it's very difficult to tell whether you're in one column or row of these I-beams or the next, especially when the far walls are so far away that the data is very sparse and basically useless for the registration. So these are a couple of things to try and watch out for in the registration process. But otherwise, we expect that you're going to get very good results from the automatic registration. Again, it is a beta, so please give us your feedback. Let us know if you're seeing issues or what kind of data sets you're working with, and we'll be looking at those any challenges that we get in from the field from you guys to improve and increase the performance of the registration engine. In terms of providing feedback, I wanted to mention our forums. So we have the forums.autodesk.com where you can go and provide feedback or look for solutions for any of our Autodesk products. There's a direct link here to our recap product page. our forum page. Here you can find solutions to problems that other customers have had. You can also post um, um, any comments or problems that you might be having, and we will try to be very responsive about doing that. Eric and the customer engagement team is very good at responding to these, and they strive to respond to every one of these in a timely manner. I think 24 hours is their goal. So feel free to use that. Another thing that I wanted to mention as something new that we've added, which is our Recap Idea Station. This is something new, just was launched, I think this week. This is an area where you can go to provide ideas that you might have about how to make the product better, or new features that you might be interested in having within Recap. So please go check this out. Take a look at what other people are proposing, vote on them, and share your own ideas. And this is something that we're going to be reviewing very frequently to try and incorporate the most popular items here into new releases of Recap. Okay, and lastly, here we have all of the places where you can get a hold of us. The YouTube channel that I'd mentioned, there are lots of other webinars that have been recorded and put up on the YouTube channel, especially the one that Ryan gave 2 weeks ago has a lot more details about some of the other new features in Recap and Recap 360. Of course, there are the Twitter and Google handles there. And I think that is everything. So if there were any questions about the registration or suggestion, I'll be happy to take those now.
All right, thanks, Seth. So yeah, as Seth said, we'll take a few questions here. Just a reminder, feel free to type those into the question box widget there as part of GoToMeeting. And again, as Seth said, feel free to reach out to us. I mean, I mentioned it at the beginning, but we really do value your feedback, suggestions, all of those sorts of things. So please don't hesitate to shoot us some feedback. It's great to hear, positive or negative. It's all helpful. So let's jump into a couple of questions. So Seth, with the automatic registrations, so we do have the targets in there. So does the automatic registration do anything with the targets?
Currently, no. The automatic registration is not integrating the targets. You can still select the targets after the automatic registration if you're wanting to align data to survey, or to use those targets to stitch together any scans that might have low overlap or might otherwise have problems. So those things can still be used, but it's not currently used in the automatic registration.
All right. We also, just for some clarification, so we had a question about, in the beginning you talked about the portfolio changes with Recap and, if we can go back to that slide. So Recap and, Recap 360. So everything that Seth was showing you with the registration capabilities, those are all part of Recap 360 Ultimate. So, just like today, if you're familiar with Recap Pro, the registration features are all in that, that upper tier. We feel like most people probably won't need those unless unless you have a scanner and you're doing a lot of scanning. So these registration features are all in that ultimate 360 package. But that said, Recap, again, as Seth mentioned, Recap is a free product. So that's what's shipping with most of the suites and all of that. You can go to the website and download that if you just need to, view your data, do some simple editing and things like that. But Recap, is what's shipping with the suites. Recap 360 is then a separate application. And in terms of the release date, we're releasing this next week, so that should be available for download soon. You'll see all the information on pricing and all of that for 360. We've dropped the prices a bit, so you should be happy to see some of those sorts of changes. But you'll be able to find all that information on the product page next week when we launch. Let's see. Anybody else have questions? Okay, so automatic registration. So with the importing of scans, so we all know
Mhm.
that sometimes importing takes a while. How does that interact? So if I only have 3 scans imported, will it only run on those scans, and the rest won't get added, or how does that work? Could you talk about that a little bit, Seth?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So that's one thing that we're trying to improve. But the way that it works currently today is that you'll need to fully import all of your scans before you do the automatic registration. We do, when you click this register scans button, it will trigger a process to wait for all of the registration or all of the import to finish completely before that automatic registration is started. So, if you're bringing in 100 scans and you go ahead and click this auto reg button before you leave at the end of the day, it will go through and it will import all of those 100 scans, and then it will trigger that auto registration to run overnight, and you'll have your data stitched together when you get back to the office in the morning. But it's not currently set up to be able to pull in more scans on the fly as the registration is running, or even if you've done a full 100 scans and now you want to just add one more to it, that auto reg is going to have to run completely from scratch back over all 101 scans. So that's something to consider in your workflows. And we hope to make modifications to that in the future. So keep an eye out for that.
All right. And let's see. Let's maybe grab one more. Okay, well, here's a good one. So the auto registration, are we tying to any specific format? So for instance, you showed FLS data. Does it matter if we have a mix of input types? Does it matter? Do we only support auto registration with certain formats?
No, so good question. Any kind of what we consider a structured format, so that's any kind of terrestrial-based tripod type scanning import. So that would be your FLS, your ZFS. We support TopCon now, Trimble. There's a whole host of them that can be imported, and the automatic registration in our whole registration engine in general doesn't matter what format. You can mix and match and mingle those however you like. So if you had 5 FLSs and 3 ZFSs and a couple of TopCon scans, you could bring those all in and register all of those together, auto registration or manual registration. Again, you want to pay attention to the naming of them and the import, like I mentioned here. There might be some strategies around trying to best import them to get the best performance out of the auto registration. But otherwise, yeah, we support mixing and mingling all those formats.
All right. Well, thank you. So I think with that, we'll wrap things up. As I said, everybody, feel free to reach out to us, recap.community@autodesk.com. Feel free to send us your feedback. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen today and to watch our session. The next one, we're going to be talking in depth about the new capabilities on the web for Recap 360 for this new release. So, I hope you'll all, go over to recapproduct.com and sign up for that session as well. Hope to see you again. Thank you, Seth, for the presentation. I think we got a lot of good information.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.